Right, good morning. So we're just going to finish off Kuf Nun Dalet today. Interesting halachas. We have got one sif left, a very short sif, but the Mishnah Berurah goes into the details, which are very relevant stuff. When you get, a few people get together, buy a Sefer Torah, and then they move on. One guy moves on. What happens? All these sort of halachas are very interesting, related halachas. So it says the Mechaba in Kuf Nun Dalet Sif Tesvav B'nei Krach. So you got a village, a town, a small town. Shekono Sefer Torah. Together they club together. They buy a Sefer Torah. V'hisnu, they make a tnai. She'im yetze echod me'akrach. If one of them leave, shanisharim yitnu lechelko. They'll buy him out. Now, let's give an example, and we'll see exactly what the Mechaba is talking about. Let's say they buy a Sefer Torah for £50,000, and they're 5 people, and they pay £10,000 each. And then the price of the Sefer Torah go through the roof, like they have, and now it's worth £100,000. So they want to buy him out, and they want to give him his chelek. So do they give 10,000, what was the original share, or do they give 20,000? So again, says the Mechaba, B'nei krach shekono sefer Torah, v'hisnu shem yetze echad me'akrach, hanasharam yitnu lechelkai, v'hukru hasfarim, and the Sefer Torah have gone up in value, im yotzo echad mehem, if one of them leave, ein noisten lo ele mashen nosen bilvad. You only have to pay him out to give him his original contribution. That's what the Mechaba says. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotan Nun Zayin. V'hisnu. Now they made a t'nai, u'b'loi hisnu, but if they did not make a t'nai, ein sarich litzin lozeh shahilech klum. Then if the guy chooses to leave and they never made a t'nai in the first place, you don't have to give him anything. Why? That he bought it, they clubbed together with the idea, with the understanding that he's going to stay here. But if he leaves, that's his choice. So only if they made a t'nai initially, that if I leave, you've got to buy out my share, can they do that? And at what price? It's mashen nosen bilvad, the original price they have to give him, not the increased higher price. So in our example, the 10,000, not the 20,000. Ela mashen nosan, why? The mistama lo hisnu lechelek mavura ba'isashah. Because the presumption we assume is that they planned to give him the original price, not to do a new valuation, and he'll just get his share back. He paid £10,000, we'll give him his £10,000 back. Even if there was a debate about what was intended, that is still the din. Because at the end of the day, the Sefer Torah is staying in the krach with the others, with the rest of the people. You just got to return the money to this guy. There's a debate, there's a doubt. How much do you give him back? The original, the higher price. They can say to him, Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah at the end of the day is ours. If you're going to tell me that you've got a financial claim against us, I see raya, bring me a raya that is actually you should get 20,000 back. And therefore the onus is on him, which he won't be able to do, and therefore you have to pay him the 10,000, and that is it. And according to this later svara, i.e. bring me a raya that this is the price, so he says in the Mishnah Berurah, afilu huzdu hasfarim. I don't think this happens so much, but let's say the prices go down, and instead of being worth £50,000 a Sefer Torah, it's £25,000, and each one gets £5,000, then ein sorech litzin lo ele kashar azol. Then actually you can pay him the £5,000 on that svara. If, however, the t'nai was she'em yirtzehu yitzin lohem d'meihem v'yikach ha-Sefer Torah, that they can pay, they can get their money and they can get the Sefer Torah back. They're not considered muchzukin because he has got money to pay them off. Excuse me. Okay, good test. So the Mechaba said, you pay him back mashen nosen bilvad, the original price. The chol zeh, says the Mishnah Berurah. We're in Siman Kuf Nun Dalet Sif Nun Test, the last Sif in this Siman. The chol zeh benidin kazeh. This is all in this case. The beloi t'nai, that without a t'nai lo hoyer lo shum zuchus lemishkel d'mei avu chelka, like we said above. That if they didn't make a t'nai, they can just say to him, well, listen, very nice, thank you for contributing to the Sefer Torah. If you want to leave town, that's your choice. That's the Chanal. Or Memela the Sefer Torah b'cheskas hanisharim. And Memela the Sefer Torah is in the possession of those who stay in the town. It's just that the Tanai causes sheidnu lo domim, that they've got to buy him out. Heim omrim, because they can say to him, I see raya become magir lecho b'shvil Tanai shel chol shkol. how much did you put in? What was that was a stipulation you made that you can get your money back? Then take your money. Let's say you got two partners and they buy a house. And there's a t'nai that they should give the chelik whenever they want to. And then the price of the house goes up. And one of them wants to take his chelik out of it, and he wants, of course, to get the higher value now, because let's say the house was worth £100,000 and now it's worth £200,000, and he put in a third. He wants to get back not 33,000 but 66,000. In that situation, it's clear that they get back what it's worth now, the higher price. Because of the t'nai, he's not going to be in a worse position. He made the t'nai to enhance his position. That they can't just wait to some special time. But that's not true here with the Sefer Torah. Because the difference is, in the case of the Sefer Torah, without the t'nai that he made, he's got no chelik. He gave a Sefer Torah, it now belongs to the shul. Everyone's got a fifth share. If he leaves, then it's his choice to leave, but he hasn't got a chelik. The t'nai just gives him a share in the Sefer Torah. Masha'enkein, in the house situation, he is the owner of the house. That's changed, and therefore he can get the benefit of the increase in value. For Chanal, that's the Taz. B'nei ha'ir. Now, the Mishnah then goes on and gives a whole bunch of different cases, very, very interesting cases. B'nei ha'ir, shehoya lohem beis hakneses echad. The people of the town had one shul, and for some reason they need to divide into two. They need to make a second shul. The halach is any klei kodesh, the sfarim and the silverware of the shul, and the Sifrei Torah itself, Yachleiku, they divided up by Eifin Zeh in the following way. If you've got specific items which they know that one person gave, and the name of that person hasn't sort of been lost, he or his Yarshim can take them to the new Beis HaKnesses where he's davening, this second shul. But if the name of the person who gave it, many years ago and it's forgotten now, even though you may know who was Magdash it, but his name is not known. That's how it goes. Time moves on, and then you forget the old timers in shul. I say sometimes in school, Orach Chaim, I feel very attached to Hasmonean, and people I see speak to the kids, they've never heard of Roberg, they've never heard of Mr. Jacobson, all the famous personalities back in the day. So you have it in shul as well. I know the name of the guy who was Magdashit, but his name has sort of been lost in the new Olam. That doesn't give him any benefit now because his name has been lost. What about, just by the way, there's a very interesting, important note. Look at 62. You're talking about a second shul opening. So it says in 62, we're talking about an amicable split, because this first shul is just not big enough and you need to build a new shul. But if there's a breakaway because they can't agree on things, if the majority stay in the first shul, even though they're always arguing, like Shemavu Le'el, B'Shem Adraz, Shem Mutar Nipar, they are allowed to break off. The breakaway because of a machloikas, they can't say, hey, we need, we're 20% of the people, we take 20% of the Sifrei Torah, of the Sfarim, or of the silverware. They can't say that. They can't just undo the shutfas of the shul because they're breaking away, and the zchus is with the rov, and they will get nothing. We're talking about an amicable split. Then they can take a share of the chafetzim of the shul. Okay, back to the Mishnah Berurah. V'hegdeshas, 3 lines from the bottom of the right-hand column. V'hegdeshas haboim mekupas hakahal. things which have come from the communal pot. You just say how many people are there who are bar mitzvah up, who are adults, and then do it pro rata. Because each member of the kehillah has a zuchus in the Sefer Torah, likris ba'alahem, to learn from it, v'lishtamesh b'chafetzim shel hegdish. Aval hamogen Avram Kosov, tzagam lenoshim v'tav yesh chelek b'chol advarim. Amazing that even the women and the children have a chelek in all the artifacts of the shul, and therefore when you split it not according to the bar mitzvah, to adult males, but split it according to the men, women, and children. Ki yershim hazuchus me'avazem, because they may have been yershed their zuchus from their parents, and therefore they're included in the count. Very interesting. If you can't divide it up, for you've got one Sefer Torah and one Keser Torah and etc. So then yishtamshu bohem kol echad erech zman lefi hazuchus sheyesh lem bohem. So split it according to time. Yeah, do it that way. Okay, next case. Kahal shebarchu meir me'ezeh sibah. You've got a community which leave the town for whatever reason. Ve'echad mehem lokach kolei hakodesh imo. And one of them took the klei kodesh with them. V'achar chozru rov hakahal. So imagine there's nebuch like a pogrom, and the whole town leave, and then 6 months later they come back and they bring back the artifacts with them. They've got to return them all. Even though, let's say, he went into the shul and he takes his silverware, he takes his Sefer Torah, and they all go nebuch. They put it on the back of a wagon and they leave town, and they come back 6 months later. The question is, does he have to re-give his Sefer Torah and anything else back to the shul? So says the Mishnah Berurah, he doesn't want to be part of that tzibur anymore, whatever. Since the Rov HaKahal have come back to that place, so then he has to give his initial donation back to where he initially gave it. Kosov Ramah, but Tshuva in Siman Samach Dalet. Echad shekona mitzvah l'shana. Interesting case. A guy bought a mitzvah for a year. We've had this before. That I'm going to have the zuchus of Hagba Galila for the whole coming year. Kagoin Galila, for that's the example he gives. And then in the course of the year, the king made a decree that they've got to leave town. Now the shaila is, he gave, let's say, £1,000, and halfway through the year they kicked him out of town. Can he get £500 back? That's the shaila. So he says, at the time when he gave his money, there was rumors around town, there was word around town that this is what the king wants to do. Even though they tried to be mevatel the gezerah, if he should have said that if the king Taka goes ahead with his decree and kicks us out, then I get my money back. He should have made the tanai. If he didn't make a tanai, then he's lost his money. He's got to pay the initial donation. For Gamba Hisna, and even if he made a tanai, he's got to go according to the detail of the tanai, of the conditions. I.e., all the halachas of tanaim. It's got to be a tanai kodin l'maisa and all these sort of rules. Okay. We're halfway through the left-hand column. In the Chidush Rabbi Akiva Eiga, he glosses on this, and his opinion is this: if he made it clear that he's only giving the money, if he Lamaisa gets the Hagba the Galila, then he can get his money back, because if they're kicked out of town, then he's not going to practically do it. Next case. What about this? This is a fascinating case. Let's say you dig up the front pathway of the shul, you redo the front drive, and as they're digging, there's something that they find a treasure. So who does that belong to? Yeah, everyone becomes a shutuf in the shul. Is it the guy who was digging? How does that work? Or in the shul itself. You have been zeicha to it. You don't say that the chotzer has been niknet to the hegdish, and now this belongs to the whole shul. To chotzer koine mitam yad. In the hilchos kinyonim, there's a kinyon called the yad. The chotzer has been koine mitam yad. Ve'en yad lehegdish. The Magen Avraham says b'shem yaguda that there's no yad lehegdish, and therefore hegdish has not been koiner it, and therefore the individual has the zuchus. Actually, this is subject to opinions in the Rishonim. Ayin Sham. Now, this is very interesting. The old question: do you publicize the fact that you've given a donation? do you have your name up in lights or a plaque in the shul or something like that? So here we go. A guy hamisnad the beis adov lebeis hakneses could go in parochis v'tasei kesef v'yechse b'chiyetz b'zeh v'roitz lichtav shmo alav, and he wants to write his name on it. Ein hatzibur yochedim le'akiv alav. The tzibur can't stop him. If he wants to, let's say, buy a Keser Torah for the Sefer Torah, and he wants to have his name in the Keser Sefer Torah, they can't protest, they can't stop him. Shegama Torah mitzvah, because the Torah itself publicizes those people who do a mitzvah. That's only if they're happy to receive his nedava. They want the Keser for the Sefer Torah. But he can't force his nedava on the tzibur. Now, if you look at note 64, he addresses what I said earlier. This is a very interesting case. What if they say to him, look, you want to write a Sefer Torah? Fine. But we don't want you to write your name on the yad of the Sefer Torah or on the keser of the Sefer Torah, or we'll just put a little plaque up saying this was given by, right? V'im reitzim says 64. V'im reitzim agaboyim lichter v'shmei al luach hatolim beis hakneses b'makom lekeis v'alchevet shetorah kos v'shal shuv zigros Moshe sherishoim. They're allowed to say to him, look, we'll put it on a plaque. V'chein kos v'shal shuv shevet halevi she'ein tzorich lichter v'shem hatorim dafka al hachevetz hamugdash atzmai. You don't have to do it on the actual chayfetz. V'hoisif she'af im ksuvim al hachevetz atzmai yesh lasus bekeim b'tznius. If you're going to write it on the actual item of the mitzvah, whatever it may be, do it in a modest way, not in a very stand-out way. To suggest that this is a chelek of the Klei Kodesh. His name is part of this Keser Torah or whatever. What about you have your name on the me'il of the Sefer Torah? This was given by whatever, in memory of or whatever. Why is that different? Mishum should just have a plaque in the Orach Chaim or something. Sefer 1 was given by whatever. Why is Sefer Torah different? Mishum shemilvad shemaskirin oisem mitzvah. Aside from the fact you're publicizing the people who are oisem mitzvah, roitzim sheyadua lemishach Sefer Torah. We want it to be known whose Sefer is this. Of a prat ladas hasovim she'in roi lahagdish Sefer Torah legamri, because especially according to those opinions which say that you shouldn't give a Sefer Torah permanently to shul, it's on loan or whatever, kadesh leafkir mimenu al yidei zeh mitzvah ksiva Sefer Torah, that we shouldn't take away from him the mitzvah Sefer Torah. So it's not like a permanent donation. That way it's still yours and you've been kind of the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. Okay. So in other words, it says Ramosha that you can write the plaque and you can do that instead. That's what Ramosha says. Okay, let's just finish off the last few lines of Mishabura. I'm about 10 lines from the bottom. Interesting case. Kosa b'Sefer Chasidim Siman Tov Kuf Gimel. Sorry, just one more point. 65. Interesting. For Hosef Haramah, Sha'af Roy Lasoskin. This is the point I wanted to mention earlier. Is it good to put a plaque on, to put your name, to publicize the fact you're giving the money? So he says the Ramah in Yerideh, in Reish Mem Tes, Af Roy Lasoskin. It's worthy to do it. Uvatam Dova Reisham Benekudas HaKesef, Sheiv B'Shem HaRashba, Kadei Litein Schar L'Oisem Mitzvah, She'elohem L'Zikaron Tov Al Mitzvah She'also. They'll have permanent sort of memory that he was associated with this mitzvah. V'gam Pesach B'Zeh Deles L'Oisem Mitzvah. Moreover, it will encourage other people to do it. Okay, and therefore it's worth putting your name on it. Okay, there are different days about this. Okay, let's just finish off. Kosav B'Sefer Chasidim, about 10 lines from the end. But Simon Tov Kuf Gimel. There was a story with the guy who built a shul. Unbelievable. He said, look, the shul's going to cost £200,000. I want to give the whole lot. I want to monopolize this thing. And the other said, no, we want to have it. You give your big chelek and we'll be mishtatif with you. And v'lo rotza. Why not? He wanted him and his children to have a name. This would always be his shul. The Kala Zara says the Sefer Chasid Nebuch, his children died because he refused to let others participate. There's a famous ma'aser with the Orach Chaim. One time, someone wanted to underwrite the yeshiva in Radin for 3 years, and the Orach Chaim refused. He says you can give a nice nadava, but we can't underwrite the whole thing. You can't monopolize it, because every almana who gives a few kopecks, she has a chelik in it, and you can't take that zuchus away from them. Interesting thing. Kosev Emunas Shmuel Siman Lamatei. Gabay Tzedaka Shesochar Poyalim L'Sayed L'Kai V'Moy Tzedaka. Very interesting case. You have the Gabay Tzedaka who oversees the refurbishment of the building of a shul. He hires builders L'Sayed L'Kai or to decorate with money which is not his. Money belongs to Tzedaka. Ein Lichlev Beis HaMedrash. You can't have a nice plaque in the Beis HaMedrash saying Zois Nasiv Kudas Pleini Gaboy. This was done under the oversight of the Gabba. Who can be on the plaque? The Davka Misha Oisa Ba'atzma, either the guy who actually built it himself, who dug and built and plastered and decorated, or Magdish Mamayna Kaisun, or the guy who's actually his money was. That's what you can write. Ad kan Shayna Vuv Bel Yirab of Ein Shom B'Siman Kuf. Okay.